Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC, and this is the final build episode of the Blob. So in this episode we're going to be getting it ready to fly basically. So I've got to hook the ailerons up to the servos, we've got to get the radio gear installed, and we've got to get the motor mounted, test the radio gear, get the radio set up and all that sort of stuff, and then it should be ready to go. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. Okay, so first job I want to get done is to get these ailerons hooked up to the servos. So the servos are already in place. You can just see the arms poking through there. In fact, there you can just about see the servo underneath the covering. And obviously I've gone slightly different to what it said in the instructions, which was just my own personal preference really. And instead of using the torque rods which are supplied in the kit, I've decided to obviously use the individual servos. But what I can make use of, if we can get it out of the bag, is I think there's a couple of push rods included. So I'm going to use these. Just got a threaded piece of threaded bar on one end. You can't see that, I know, but anyway, you get the idea. And basically what I'm going to do is put a Z-bend in this. Let's turn this upside down. So I'll get a horn on about here, perfectly in line with that. You obviously don't get the horns either because you wouldn't need these for the torque rods, but I had some of these spare, and it's actually the same one that they do give you for the elevator, so that's all fine. So I've got to get those positioned, and then I'll just use a clevis. I think that'll be absolutely fine. Get that hooked up to the horn, and then I'm just going to put a Z-bend to go through the servo arm there, and that should be all good. So first thing I need to do is probably get my control horn mounted. So I'll just get that done and then show you the next step. Okay, so I've got the control horns in position there, and they're screwed in place. So now I just need to sort out the push rod. You do get these push rods, I think I said, because they come with the torque rods, and you also get clevises as well, which is handy because they would normally go on the torque rods. And I've got to say as well, the hardware that you get with this kit is really quite good. It's good quality, so that's always nice to see. So what I need to do is I just need to get this hooked onto here. So this is in position. Never that easy with metal clevises. Okay, so that's going to go there, and then I basically, where it's going to go through the hole of my control horn, my servo arm should I say, is there. So mark that with a Sharpie and then get this back off. Okay, and then we're going to take my Z-bend pliers, which are a handy thing to have in the workshop. Don't use them very often, but good when you need them. And then you just line up my mark with the first peak of the Z-bend. I know it's difficult to see, you can't really see in the light, but that's lined up. And then give it a squeeze. And then just turn that clevis so it's level, and that should be perfect like that. So just need to trim this down obviously. I'll leave a little bit extra just for fun. So then we'll put that through there, and then let's get that. In fact, before I get that on, I'm just going to put a bit of fuel pipe over the clevis. So I don't really want to take this off again. Just the usual thing, just threading some fuel pipe on just so it stops the clevis from, or helps it to stop coming undone, let's put it that way. Okay, and then we'll get this through there. And then oops. There we go. And probably what I do need to do is just wind this clevis in a bit, which is fine. I'd rather be winding it in than out, to be honest. Let's just snip a bit more off this now, because that's going to be fine. And we don't need any more than that. See what that looks like from the other side. It's not bad at all. Yep, I think that's pretty good. So we'll get that secured in place. There we go. Slide the tube up, and we've got ourselves a control rod. And there's very little slop in that. That's the good thing about the Z bends, and obviously a clevis. So that's really good. So I'll get the other side done. I'll just get the servo tester, and I need to get, well actually I think I'm going to wire these up separately on 2 different channels, but for now I'll just dig a wire lead out just to hook up to my servo tester, so I'll show you that once I've got that other one hooked up. Okay, that's those hooked up, and I got my servo tester on here just with a wire lead at the moment, but we've got loads of movement there. More than enough. So that's good. That's got the ailerons hooked up. So I think next job, I've already done the elevator, as I said. That was tricky. I had a clevis at the back end of that horn and a ball joint here where the servo is. But for some reason it was really binding. I don't know what was going on with the clevis, but I think it was, I don't know, it was just, it was almost like getting stuck and jittering like that, and I tried it without the servo and it was doing the same thing when I was pushing it. But when you took the elevator, if you unhook the elevator, the run was really smooth. But anyway, what I've done is I've put a ball joint instead of the clevis at the back there, and that's sorted it out. It's nice and smooth now, and I've got some good movement there on the elevator as well. So that's all the surfaces hooked up really and done. So next job is going to be mounting the motor. And then once we've got the motor mounted, I can put the ESC in, get this battery tray fastened in. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that battery tray, because I'm going to put some special covering on it, I think, before I glue it in position. Yeah, so we'll get the motor out and we'll get that mounted. Now, when I initially tested it, I used some screws to come through the firewall, but I've bought some bolts now with some lock nuts, so I'll just show you those, because what I was worried about was obviously the screws are quite sharp, and I didn't want the battery coming forwards and being punctured by the screws, because that would be a bit of a disaster if that happened in flight. Yeah, so I'll get the motor out and we'll have a look what that involves. Okay, so time to get the motor on, and this is a 3530 1400 kV. This is recommended. So I've already screwed the mount on and I've Loctited those screws in place at the back there. So what I wanted to do though was, rather than actually use, like I said, like normal screws to screw it in, got some in here actually, like those, obviously they're mega sharp at the front now. I could cut those down, but what I thought I would do is, I got this set here of screws, and probably bolts, should I say, countersunk bolts. And maybe use something like that. Yeah, that's going to be perfect. That's going to fit in there just nice, and that's got a countersunk head which goes right in. And then I've just got some washers to go on the back. So obviously this is going to be behind the firewall, but we'll get a washer on there. And then, so that was an M3, I think, that bolt. So I also bought, these packs are pretty good actually, I get them off Amazon, just like a selection pack of nuts and whatever, but these are lock nuts. So I've got a whole different selection here. Why is that not coming open? Aha. So then on the back, probably going to be one of these little lock nuts. Yeah, perfect. So we just got a lock nut on the back there then as well. So that should be ideal really. So let's get those off. And we'll take my battery tray out, which should come out. And then I can get into the back here. And get one of these screwed in. Let's get an Allen key. We might need to drill these holes out a bit more in the... oh yeah, it goes that way, doesn't it? In the firewall, because I think they're going to be too small because they were just screw holes. Yeah, they're way too small. Right, let me just drill those out. Okay, managed to find a drill bit that was exactly the right size, which is good. So just get this last bolt put in. Okay, then all we've got to do is try and get the washers and the nuts on, which is going to be a tad fiddly to say the least, but we'll do it. So I'll get those on and then get the lock nuts tightened up. I should be able to get my sockets, my sort of socket wrench in there. But obviously getting the washers on is going to be a bit of a tricky one, but get those done, get that tightened up, and then that's going to be the motor on, and nice clean install there. I left the two cutouts, by the way, at the front here. These two rectangles were actually for the engine mount, the original engine mount, but I thought it will just give it a bit of extra cooling, so I've left those as they are. So let me get this tightened up, and then we're going to be into getting the speed controller in, I think. Okay, so we've got the motor mounted, and I can tell you it was a struggle. There was a few swear words. It just was very fiddly to get those lock nuts in the back. I know you can't really see there, but we got there in the end, and it's much better than the screws because there's no worries about the battery getting pushed forward onto those lock nuts there. Not going to do any harm. So next job I've got to do is sort out the speed controller. So I've got this spare 50 amp speed controller. I didn't realise though it doesn't have a connection on the end, but that's fine. So I've just got an XT60 there to put on the end. So I'm just going to get that done now and get that soldered up. And then where I'm going to place it, I was having a look at this last night, because obviously I've got the battery tray going in here. I'm going to get that in, kind of like that. Obviously it goes in flat. So I think I'm going to put the speed controller, basically it's going to go, I'm going to glue it to the side down here. Let me just take that out, so that's not really helping anything. I'm going to glue it down at the side like this. So it's going to be just on that right hand side. You can't really see, but I'm just going to glue that to the side of the fuselage, and then I've got plenty of lead for that to go back to the receiver up here, so that's fine. And then obviously the battery will just connect to the XT60 there, but that way it's not fouling the battery, and I can still get the straps around. I'm going to put a Velcro strap around this battery tray where I've got these two grooves cut out. So first thing I need to do though, once I've got the XT60 on, is I need to get this hooked up to a battery and just make sure I've got the motor spinning in the right direction, because it's going to be a little bit tricky to get to the motor leads once I've got the battery tray glued in. So that's kind of essential that I get that sorted beforehand. So I'm going to get the soldering iron out, get the XT60 glued on, and then I'll show you once I've got the speed controller glued on the side there. Okay, we're making good progress. So, got the prop on. Well, actually, I've only temporarily put the prop on. Just, I know it's a bit dangerous, but just to make sure the motor was spinning in the right direction, and it is. I initially had it so it was wrong. Sod's law. It's usually always like that when you connect to a speed controller. It's just obviously swapped two of the cables around, and I've got a nice little spinner for it as well, which I think looks pretty cool. Just need to tighten all this up, take the spinner off, and tighten the prop up properly before I go and fly it. Okay, so what I want to do now is get this battery tray put into position. I've got a notch cut out at the front here. I've just done that just to allow the cables for the motor and the speed controller to come up and over. Otherwise it was kind of jamming them in the front there, so I didn't like that. So I've just got that notch out. Then I've got this shelf liner stuff or anti-slip mat. So I'm going to get that glued on there with some contact adhesive, and then once I've done that, got a strap to go around there, so I'll get that fastened on so that can't come off, and then glue it in place. And then once I've got this glued in place, I can glue the speed controller to the side of the fuselage, leave that to dry, and then that's going to be that front end more or less done. Then all I've got to do then is get my receiver, fasten my receiver in here, and get obviously the servos plugged in, get it set up on my radio. And then the last thing to do is I've got a bit of trim to put on. So I'm going to put some thin black line here. I've got a Blob sticker to put on, which is black as well, so that's going to look nice. And then underneath I've just got some big sort of fat black stripes just to help me see it basically when it's flying around. And that's it, done. So it's going to take me a few minutes to do that. It's going to be a few seconds for you guys, but I will show you the finished result and we'll be ready to fly, ready to do the maiden. Okay, it's finished. I'm really pleased with it, really pleased with the way it's turned out. I love the colour scheme that I've chosen. It's nice and simple, obviously just 2 colours, but with the black sticker there, blob sticker, and there's another one on the tail which I'll show you in a second. Just think it looks superb. Bought myself a nice black nose cone as well for it. Got an APC electric prop on there. I just think it looks fast. I mean, it is only 3S, but I think it's I've seen videos of one flying on 3S and it's plenty fast enough. I'm really looking forward to maiden in this now. So just to show you a few final bits. So I've got the blob decal there, and then I've just got sort of a corresponding one there on the tail. And then you can see here, just to sort of neaten off where the covering meets the wing, the fuselage meets the wing, should I say, and they've got the cover in there. I've just put a piece of trim tape along there, and then just a thinner piece there, just to sort of add a bit of detail there. I think that looks really good. And then underneath, nice and simple, just so I can see the thing when it's flying around, I've just added 2 great big black stripes to the bottom of the wings. Marked the CG out. I've tested the CG with a 3S battery, and that's works out perfect for where I want to position the battery. And then just to show you the inside, just take this hatch off, which is a little bit tight, but we get there. So that's how I've got it laid out. So you can see my battery tray in there with the shelf liner stuff on, and I had a bit of fun with the Velcro strap, because the one that I originally put in there was actually too big and it wouldn't fasten back to itself. So I ended up having to take it out, but obviously I'd already glued the battery tray in and it's going underneath the battery tray, but I managed to, by attaching a new one to the old one, I managed to sort of pull it through. It was a bit of a hairy moment because I thought if this goes wrong, I'm a bit stuffed really, but anyway, that sorted itself out. And then I've just got my receiver sat there, and that's fastened down, and then I've just got one aerial lead going down here and another one sort of going around there. So yeah, really pleased with it. I've really enjoyed it as a build. It's been fairly straightforward, as I've said all along. It's gone together well. The components in the kit seem like really good quality. And yeah, it just comes together well and just makes a really nice little model that you can just, as I said right from the very start, just something that you can throw in the boot of your car, 3S batteries, get a bunch of them charged up and get down to the field and have a couple of hours of fun, which is exactly what I intend to do. So next video, of course, is for this, is going to be the maiden flight. So hopefully you'll join me for that one. If you click on the bell icon, then you'll get notified when I release new videos. That is, of course, if you're subscribed. If you haven't subscribed and you're into fixed wing RC and particularly balsa and balsa builds, then please really help me out by subscribing to my channel. It doesn't cost you anything to subscribe. You'd be doing me a massive favour and I'd really appreciate it. And for all those people who've already subscribed and all the comments and things like that I get, I really appreciate it. Really enjoy you watching along. Yeah, thanks for all your support. Give me a thumbs up if you've liked the video. And I'll see you soon for the next one.